Welcome back, everyone. John Edwards, a former presidential candidate, acquitted on one charge, on one count this past week. 5 other counts, a mistrial. Here to talk about that, our legal analyst who is here, on a moment's notice to come in and talk about all things legal and the high-profile cases is Dan Steinbach. Good to see you again, Dan.
Nice to be here, Lee.
The dean of the UT College of Law, and had to watch this very closely over the last couple of weeks, I would surmise.
As closely as I could,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, and what'd you make of what came about? Because there was some criticism of the Justice Department's case leading up to the partial verdict.
It was seen as a weak case going in, an unusual theory for a campaign contribution violation, and it seems to have been borne out by the verdict. I mean, one not guilty verdict and a hung jury, meaning there's a mistrial on those counts, and he could be retried on the remaining 5 counts. We'll know in a few days, probably.
That quickly?
Probably.
Well, that's the big question. Will the Justice Department, all the money and the time, Dan, go after it again?
That's their decision, of course, but if I had to pick an option, I would say that they probably won't. It was, their case went in about as well as it could have, given the evidence they had. They took their shot. The jury seems to have behaved properly. The jury was telling them, I think, this isn't a crime.
Were you surprised the jury, the very next day, went on the Today Show, and said, three of those jurors said, yeah, I thought he was guilty, but you got to have 12. So,
well, there obviously weren't 12,
no, clearly not.
You know, the ones who went on the TV are self-selected, so you don't know what the other people thought. You know, there was an argument here that the money that came in to support his mistress and to hide her was in fact to influence the campaign. But there were so many elements to this. Some of the money didn't even get to her. It was taken by his aide.
Andrew Young.
Andrew Young. He wasn't a particularly believable person
Then
anyway.
wrote the book, portrayed himself as a sympathetic figure in all this. In Game Change, the book.
Portrayed himself
Yes,
that way,
yes.
but didn't look that way when the evidence came out. It turned out that the majority of the money was taken by Young and his wife, in part to build themselves a house. Was the money, even if it got to Edwards, a personal gift or a campaign contribution? If the money came indirectly for his benefit, did he know about it? And did he know that he was violating federal law, the campaign laws, in taking it? Those were all the things that the prosecution had to prove, and clearly they failed on at least one of them with some of the jurors. Given that fact, I mean, legally the prosecution's entitled to try again on the remaining counts. It would be surprising to me if they did.
Did you see the statement following trial that John Edwards made?
Yes, I did.
Okay, in case you missed it, John Edwards came out and gave this statement upon the not guilty verdict on the one count, the mistrial on the others.
While I do not believe I did anything illegal or ever thought I was doing anything illegal, I did an awful, awful lot that was wrong. And there is no one else responsible for my sins.
There you go. Has to fall on the sword, right? I mean, he's responsible, but from the beginning, he didn't break the law.
Well, you know, he's certainly fallen in public opinion. What a come down from being a serious presidential candidate. And there's a saying among criminal defense lawyers, the process is the punishment. He has been through that process. I'm not saying that that's the only punishment if indeed he was guilty, but nobody wants to go through a criminal charge like this, and his life will never be the same.
Yeah, tried to open the door maybe a little bit that he could come back in public life in some way. And America is certainly a very forgiving country. We've seen other very high-profile politicians make incredible comebacks, have we not?
We have, Lee, and you know, this wouldn't be the strangest, but
be up there.
It'd be up there.
Top 5. Top 5.
I agree with you.
Really sad situation. Got his parents in the background. Elizabeth Edwards, passing away of cancer through all this. Really one of the most incredible falls from grace one could ever see in American politics.
It's remarkable that he would take these chances while he was running for the highest office in the country.
He himself an attorney.
Yes.
As an attorney, is there, does he have input on what happens here? I mean, he didn't take the stand, and in this case, that was the prosecution, or I should say the defense's choice. Could he possibly have had input on that?
Oh, yeah, he had to have, because it's always the defendant's choice whether to take the stand or not. But he was a trial attorney, and I think most people who have been trial attorneys, after hearing the prosecution's case in this case, would have advised their client not to take the stand. And he probably had some sense of that himself. It's not a good idea to take the stand if you're the defendant, if there's a reasonable doubt in the prosecution's case that's come before that.
And if the case against you, if you feel it's not that strong to begin with, you're doing okay.
That's right.
You have nothing to gain?
Yes, and something to lose,
Yeah.
because if he was caught in a lie, and as soon as the defendant takes the stand, it becomes a little bit in the jury's mind, well, who do I believe, the prosecution or the defense? Whereas really in a criminal case, the only question is, do we believe the prosecution's case beyond a reasonable doubt? So you kind of tip that balance if, as a defendant, you take the stand. My guess is they were never close to having him take the stand.
How do you get jurors to be objective? There are so many high-profile cases, Dan, where you think there's no way you can get an objective jury. The Sandusky case is coming up here this week. Unless a delay is granted. They're trying to get this delay, and the judge keeps saying no. But how do you find people who don't watch what's going on, who are not influenced by media?
Well, this may come as a surprise, but some people don't watch television.
Or watch the internet and newspapers. I mean, you understand what I'm saying.
I do. And there's a process called voir dire in which the jurors are examined and asked if they've followed the case in the media, and if they have, if they can put that information or their feelings about it aside. And by and large, we take their answers. It is not a foolproof process. I read somewhere that some of the alternate jurors seem to be flirting with John Edwards.
Yes, a wink here, a nod there.
And and that happens. This is not perfect. We have 12 jurors, so maybe that is some safeguard. And the jurors are instructed on the law. This is what you're supposed to consider. You're not supposed to consider what's in the media. And most jurors do a very conscientious job of following those instructions.
You trust the system. You trust it, obviously, right?
I do, actually. Yes, I've tried cases to judges. I've tried cases to juries. I would trust juries.
I was going to ask you that. Do you have a preference? 3-judge panel, 12-person jury?
Well, there are many fair judges. You can get a fair trial in front of a judge.
I'm sure you can. Yeah, you better say, cover your bases here.
But certain kinds of cases, you actually want a judge to decide the case, because there may be some evidence that is so inflammatory that the jurors can't get past it. In other cases, you want the wisdom of the 12 people. Now, in this case, a lot of the dirt, so to speak, was part of the case, and that was inevitable. They'd hear it.
Thanks very much for coming in.
A pleasure.
Fascinating case. We'll talk to you as the Jerry Sandusky trial works its way through the process.
Be happy to do that. Thank you.
Dan Steinbach, Dean, UT College of Law. Come back, take 3 on the way in just a minute.